I'm Arielle Kaplan from Alma.
And you're watching.
And God was like, the tea, you guys, for Torah. This week's Parshat is Beha'alotcha, which means to raise the lamps. Let's get into it. Chapter 8. So Aaron is really upset that he wasn't included in the offerings to the Mishkan in last episode. God is like, Moses, tell your brother he actually has a very special job, lighting the menorah. Lighting the menorah. Moses is like, can you just fucking tell him? Like, am I my brother's keeper? And God is like, yeah, you are. Then God is like, I want you to get all the Levites and cleanse them, but I don't want them to feel bad about it, so make it sound like fun. So Moses goes over and he's like, you are so excited to be getting cleansed for God. And they're like, no, we're fucking not. To be cleansed, the Levites get red heifer blood as their bath bomb, and they have to shave their entire body. Thank you. In Judaism,
with great power comes great responsibility.
As such, the Levites have the responsibility of doing a lot of dirty work in the Mishkan. Woo! Chapter 9. So now we're in the second year post-Exodus on the first moon. God explains how to perform a Passover sacrifice. Honestly, that's the most boring part of this parsha. Of course, there are a couple rules to the Passover sacrifice. You can't break a bone or you'll get 40 lashings. If you don't make an offering, God's gonna kill you. He doesn't make the rules, he just enforces them. God guided the Israelites in the form of a cloud. When the cloud would rise up, they had to leave. When the cloud came down, they had to stay. Sometimes they would stay in one place for like a year, and other times they would finally sit down and then God would be like, all right, we're going. There's also this rule that the Ark of the Covenant couldn't be set unless the Jews amounted to 22,000 people. So we know there was a lot of shtupping going on. Chapter 10. Aaron makes Moses these 2 silver trumpets, and it's boring, I don't want to get into it. God's cloud rises up in the Mishkan, and the Israelites know that they have to start walking. So they march for 3 days until they get to Haran. Now comes a little story that seems really irrelevant but will come into play later. Moses is walking alongside his father-in-law and he's like, yo, you should totally come to the promised land with us. Daddy-in-law was like, you know what? I think I'm gonna pass. Please come. Okay, you convinced me. Chapter 11. You know those blog recipes that like you have to scroll down 10 miles to actually get to the recipe? That's what this chapter is. The Israelites are all, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Are we motherfucking there yet? And God is like, I swear to God, I will turn this car around if you don't shut up. He gets so pissed and just like sets a fire onto everybody. Post fire, everyone's really hangry and they're like, ugh, if only we had some meat. I guess. The food that we had in Egypt was so much better, and this is the equivalent of telling your mom that you prefer your stepmom's food. Finally, we arrive at the recipe for manna, the biblical food that God gave the Israelites to eat while they were in the desert. I shit you not. Rabbinical commentary says the reason the Israelites were not pooping out their food as they did in Egypt is because manna was made by God, and the food that they ate in Egypt was made by non-Jews. Basically, only Gentile food makes you poop. Back to manna. It's like coriander seed colored like bdellium. These are words I do not know. So even though it tastes like whatever they wanted, the tribes of Israel all stood outside of their tents, crying, hoping that God would hear them. Now, the rabbis say the Israelites weren't crying because they were hangry. They were crying because they just found out that they can't have incest anymore. Crying over childhood food is infantile, and that mindset is consistent with incest. Clinging to the intimacies of one's infancy rather than moving towards new relationships shows that incest is a failure of the imagination. I don't have enough time to comment on this, so I hope you can just imagine what I might say. God's obviously really pissed. And Moses, he's so stressed out because he's the leader and everyone is asking him to find meat. They know he can't get meat, and he knows he can't get meat. Moses tries to plead with God. I don't want to be the fucking middleman anymore. I didn't even want to be the leader. Honestly, if you're not going to help me out, just put me out of my misery and kill me. Oh my God, you're being so dramatic. Just pick 70 of your favorite elders and they'll help you out. And tell those ungrateful bitches that if they want meat, I'll give them meat. I'm going to give them meat for an entire month and they're going to eat that meat until it comes out of their nostrils and they're nauseous. I'm not paraphrasing here, except for the ungrateful little bitch part. The Torah actually says they'll eat the meat until it runs out of their nostrils. So Moses is like, oh, really? And God's like, don't test me, bitch. Moses picks all of the elders. God transmits his spirit into them and they all start speaking in ecstasy. That really just means they were prophesizing, but I like to say ecstasy. These two younger dudes, Eldad and Medad, weren't with the elders at this time. They start prophesizing while they're at camp. This young little Yenta, that is such a good name for a rapper, don't steal it, runs over to Moses and he's like, yo, oh my God, they're prophesizing, they're talking in ecstasy, you gotta stop them. And Moses is like, I don't give a fuck. God whips up a storm, so many quails come out from the sea on the desert. The Israelites get the quails. As soon as they put a mouthful of it in their mouth, God strikes them with a plague. So classic God. He kills the people who were spearheading this campaign against him. And for that, this place is called Kibrot HaTavet, which means graves of lust. I would love that on my tombstone. Chapter 12. Buckle up, y'all, because this is by far the juiciest chapter. As the Torah reads, Miriam and Aaron talk shit about Moses and his wife. God gets upset and strikes Miriam with a plague. There's a lot of different commentary on this, so I'm just going to tell it through my lens as I do every episode. So in the first line of this pasuk, Miriam goes to Aaron, speaks against Moses because of the Cushite woman that he married. She says he married a Cushite woman. A Cushite describes a black person from Ethiopia. So there are a couple things to iron out here. Who is the Cushite woman? Some scholars argue that the Cushite woman is Moses' first wife, who was a Cushite princess. It's confusing because his second wife, Zipporah, was not a Cushite, she was a Midianite. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. If this wife is indeed Zipporah, why do they call her a Cushite instead of a Midianite? There definitely are racist undertones in this text. Another interpretation is that this could be a racist nickname. Zipporah was really, really beautiful. They demeaned her by calling her a Cushite. The Talmud states that just like a Cushite is different because her skin, Zipporah was different because of how amazing she was. I believe the Torah is talking about Zipporah, not Moses' first wife, because of that little story with his father-in-law. That father-in-law is Zipporah's dad. Midrash tells us Miriam was talking shit not because she hated Zipporah, it was really out of concern for Zipporah and her marriage to Moses, and mostly sex. One Midrash says that when those two rando boys were speaking in ecstasy, Zipporah turned to Miriam and she was like, oh damn, I feel really bad for their lives. They're never gonna see dick again. And Miriam was like, what are you talking about, girl? The context here is that Moses became a big old prophet sellout and stopped having sex with her. In another Midrash, Miriam sees that Zipporah is not looking so cute, and so Miriam is like, Zipporah, you're not looking so cute. And Zipporah is like, your brother doesn't care. Upon learning that Zipporah and Moses' sex life was on the fritz, Miriam goes over to Aaron and she's like, yo, this is so fucked up. I mean, we're prophets too. We still have sex all the time. So then the Torah states, now Moses was a very humble man, like the most humble man ever on earth in the galaxy. And this is code for Moses' sex drive was very low. When God overhears Aaron and Miriam talking shit about his BFF Moses, he's like, come into my office right now. And God addresses Miriam and Aaron. When a prophet becomes a prophet, I come to him in a dream. And Miriam's like, or her. God continues, but not with Moses. I trust him with my goddamn life. When I talk to him, I don't play hard to get with riddles. I use honest and open communication with him because he's the tops. And honestly, the fucking audacity of you to talk ill of my servant. Best friend, I mean. So he gets so mad he just leaves. Aaron turns to Miriam, sees that she was struck with leprosy and looked white as snow, but in like a really gross way. And Aaron's like, oh geez, oh God, Moses, don't let this happen to your sister. Don't let her die like this. So Moses is like, God, come on, dude, it's fine. And God's all, harumph. If her dad spat in her face, would she not feel shame for a week? This is so triggering because Miriam has really bad daddy issues, as do I. Also, God, enough with the kink shaming. What if Miriam likes to be spat in the face by her daddy? So God's like, all right, bro, I got you. Miriam is outcast for 7 days to think about the horrible things she did. LASHON, HARA, gossiping. Personally, I love gossiping. It is what fuels me. And that's probably why I have eczema, the modern leprosy. Why was Aaron not punished? Duh, because the Torah is sexist. Really, it's because Miriam is the one who instigated it, but still sexist. Next week, I'm talking about Parashat Beha'alotcha. Moses sends 12 spies to Israel. 10 of them come back, say it's going to be way too hard to conquer the land. God punishes them with something really, 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 really bad. You guys are not going to want to miss this. See you next week.